Okay, so welcome everybody to this meeting of Oxford City Council's Cabinet, taking place on Wednesday, 13th of August at 6 p.m. at Oxford Town Hall. Welcome to all those of you who are joining us today. Thank you very much for coming. We have some apologies. We have apologies from Councillors Linda Smith, Nigel Chapman and Ed Turner. I'm not aware of any other apologies apart from, Councillor Anna Railton for being a few minutes late. So she should be with us very shortly. Are there any declarations of interest that anyone needs to make? Not seeing any, so thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting, can we have a look at those? They're on page 9 of your agenda. Is everyone happy to agree those as an accurate record? Yeah. Good, thank you very much. We now move on to addresses by members of the public, and I believe we had two. One of them is unable to be here today, but their address will be published with the minutes. And then Dan Glazebrook, over to you. Please do come up to the table. If you switch the microphone on, once the red button's on, then it's on. So please do have it then. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Is this okay? Yep. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. Almost 2,000 people now, the vast majority of them local residents, have now signed a petition against Oxpens River Bridge and its connecting paths. There are many reasons people are up in arms: the ecological destruction involved, the lack of democratic consultation, the fact there are already 2 excellent pedestrian cycle bridges within a quarter of a mile of the site, the misuse of £10 million of public money intended to facilitate affordable housing. But what I want to focus on today is how the bridge singularly fails to meet its own intended purpose to provide a flood-proof connection from Oseney Mead to Oxpens. So the local plan specifies the need for both a new bridge linking Oseney Mead to the other side of the river and a flood-proof route out of Oseney Mead. These 2 things have subsequently been combined into plans for a single flood-proof connection reaching all the way from Oseney Mead across the river, as is made clear in several official documents. Problem is, to reach the bridge from Oseney Mead, users would have to go across a stream and under a railway bridge along a section of the towpath that frequently floods. To solve this problem, the City Council commissioned Stantec to develop a project called Oseney Pathworks to create a new flood-proof path linking Oseney Mead to the planned new bridge. The preferred plan was to erect flood walls under the railway bridge, but the Environment Agency vetoed this proposal in 2021 as it would cause further flooding elsewhere. Stantec's report admitted there's no solution available which adequately addresses the flooding issue whilst also meeting current safety standards for cycling and walking. This remains the case today. As far as we're aware, there's still no solution to the issue of flooding on the path between Oseney Mead and the proposed new bridge. This makes the bridge completely redundant as it utterly fails to provide the new flood-proof connection from Oseney Mead across the river, without which housing cannot be built on the site and was the whole point of the project in the first place. The City Council is right now on the verge of committing up to £14 million of public money and causing irrevocable damage to a cherished piece of countryside on our doorstep for a bridge that singularly fails to meet its basic purpose. We urge you, please do not be a party to this shocking waste of money and biodiversity. Surely no further funds should be committed so long as there remains no viable plan to flood-proof the connection between Oseney Mead and the new bridge. I'd also like to address the issue of the university's funding commitments to the scheme. A spokesman for the university told the Oxford Mail back in January that the university, quote, last year agreed to make a contribution of around 10% of the cost of the new bridge after learning that cost increases had put its viability at risk. 10% at that time equated to more than £1 million of the project's projected costs. So if the university had already committed more than £1 million last year, as they claimed, why is this financial commitment not appearing in the figures before us today? Why is the public purse being asked to guarantee the full 3.7 million in increased costs and not say 2.7 million, given that £1 million from the university is supposedly already in the bag? Have the university now reneged on this commitment? And if the council is willing to commit the entirety of the increased costs from the public purse, what incentive is there for the university to contribute any money at all? Finally, I'd like to address the issue of Balfour Beatty's monopoly position in the delivery of the scheme. Balfour Beatty are set to be awarded the construction contract without any competitive tendering process at all. Balfour Beatty are a notorious company. They're involved in the imposition of near-slavery conditions on their migrant workforce in Qatar. Just 4 years ago, they were fined £49 million for massive fraud against the US government after it was revealed they'd been systematically falsifying data in order to get bonus payments. And in this country, their failure to comply with statutory safety requirements led in 2020 to the death of one construction worker and serious injuries to another, according to a ruling by the Health and Safety Executive last year. But as well as being criminally unethical, they're also just not very good builders. On Trustpilot, they're rated bad with just 1.7 stars out of 5. And student residents have had to be moved out of their accommodation in Bethnal Green recently due to significant defects which have been blamed on Balfour Beatty and which have cost its owner over £34 million to address. Why is the council so keen to work with these incompetent criminals that's prepared to set aside its usual tendering process and guarantee the contract to Balfour Beatty without any tendering at all? And is its willingness to do so the reason why the company feels confident enough to hike its bill by over 35% from 10 million to 14 million in just a few months? After all, the company do have form here. In 2016, one of their employees revealed how they'd been extorting the taxpayer by systematically inflating their costs. The company responded by sacking the whistleblower, for which they were later forced to pay £137,000. I'll end there, but if you'd like to be in touch about any of this or to see any of the documentation I've referred to today, please do not hesitate to be in touch with Friends of Grampont Nature Park at gmptrees@gmail.com. More information also available on our website, savegmp.org. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Glazebrook. Councillor Hollingsworth will respond to your comments. Sorry, yes, to both addresses in one.
Yes, this seemed the most efficient way of doing it. Obviously, unfortunately, Mr. Smith couldn't be here, but have read his words, and so the response will cover both. So, little bit of history. I notice the chair of the scrutiny committee is here, so he will have heard some of this before. The cabinet report that's in front of us is seeking agreement to delegate signing of agreements, entering of contracts to deliver the bridge. And as the report says, and we'll go on to cover this, this is necessary in order to meet the programme to deliver the bridge in 2026. So from 2026, we're going to go back a considerable distance in history. This bridge has long been part of policy and place-making proposals for the West End, every single one of which has been subject to public consultation and every single one of which has been subject to democratic approval by this council. The West End AAP, the first one I shall refer to, was adopted after extensive work and consultations in June 2008. So nearly 20 years ago. The consultation on that would have begun 20 years ago. And in that, it says, a new pedestrian and cycle bridge across the Thames to join what it called then Oxpens Field to the Thames towpath is proposed. And it's helpful to explain the purpose, because I think this is important to understand. This would link the West End to Oseley Mead and the West Oxford cycle route. Improvements will also be made to the route running east from the pedestrian bridge. So that was the June 2008 document consulted on publicly and approved by the council. The next one is the Oxford Core Strategy, which was adopted in March 2011. Preparation and consultation on that would have begun several years previously and been through several stages of consultation. It's essentially a local plan. And it sought a new Thames cycle and pedestrian bridge. So again, that purpose is clearly established in what was then the equivalent of a local plan. Moving forward, the Oxpens SPD, another document of a similar sort to the AAP, was adopted in November 2013. And it sought, and this is a quote, a quite extensive quote from it, which I think is important, a new footbridge crossing the Thames, or ISIS, should be provided to enhance opportunities to move between Oxpens and the wider area, notably the Grand Pont Nature Reserve. Very specific, names the Grand Pont Nature Reserve as one of the purposes of the bridge. The residential areas up and downstream on the opposite side of the river. Indicative locations for the proposed bridge crossing are illustrated on the development framework plan and illustrative master plan. And there are some rather attractive illustrations which look remarkably similar to the bridge, which we will be looking at under item 9 of the agenda. The exact location of the bridge is to be determined, and the Environment Agency must be consulted on the design. So that was fundamental position. Again, went through extensive public consultation with the entire all residents of Oxford and beyond, and then was subject to democratic approval in the full council, as was the Oxford local plan, which went through that process and was finally approved and adopted in June 2020. So this is again, local plan consultation on this began 2016, 2017, went through numerous levels of public consultation, and then of course hearings with a planning inspector, and then adoption in 2020 by the council. And it said, the master plan should consider in greater detail how and when a new pedestrian and cycle bridge will be delivered, linking this site, that is the Ox Pens site, with the other side of the river. That is reinforced by the West End and Oseley Mead SPD, again, been through a lengthy process of consultation and a democratic process of adoption in November 2022. And it said that the key infrastructure priorities in relation to movement are, and names the Ox Pens River Bridge. So that's a little bit of history, but it's important, I think, to understand this is not a recent thing that has come up. It is not a thing that started out of the growth deal signed by Oxfordshire authorities. That has been a part of core documents which have been through extensive public consultation since the earliest one I cited was adopted in 2008, and its consultation would have begun 20 years ago. The proposed bridge now has planning permission and technical approval for the structure, and a route has been identified to deliver the bridge. Further work has been done to refine the proposals to reduce the impact of trees on trees at Grampont through reuse of the existing path as far as possible. And these are set out in a non-material amendment, those capital letters, currently with the planning team. Grampont Nature Park will remain for recreational use, obviously. The proposals include replacement planting and delivery of net biodiversity gain, as is appropriate for any planning application of a certain size. The path through Grampont is already well used, and with further development in the West End, the level of use is forecast to increase. Optioning was done to look at the options of floodproofing the towpath under the rail bridge. It's an important issue that is well made, and those were not taken forward at the time because there was not funding available for them. That does not mean that the route will not continue to be used for times outside flood times, and that the paths and the proposed bridge will provide an attractive and legible route across the river to the city centre. The other gasworks bridges obviously will remain. There was a proposal to improve the gasworks rail bridge, and it was considered by the County Council in 2016, 2017, and was discounted. It was ruled out by the County Council, and it's important, as it says in the report, that they are the recipients of the funds. Further review has highlighted considerable challenges, particularly with the footpath on the Castle Mill Stream side, which is too narrow to accommodate cycling, and the alternative route across the Castle Mill Stream bridge, which would require alterations to create a hardened path and altered levels across the meadow, which of course is a protected piece of land. The proposed bridge provides the opportunity for a new and convenient active travel route across the river, designed specifically for the location to support the placemaking that will support the development of the West End as a vibrant quarter of the city, and indeed something that this city has aspired to do for 20 years. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Facebook. If you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're obviously very welcome indeed to do so. We move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is councillor addresses on any item for decision on the cabinet agenda, and I've not been notified of any nor have I been notified of any council addresses on neighbourhood issues, nor of any items raised by cabinet members. So that takes us on to item 8, which is reports from the scrutiny committee. Alex, I can see you online, so over to you.
Thank you very much. So I'll be reporting today on 2 meetings of the Scrutiny Committee. Well, rather, 1 meeting of the Scrutiny Committee and meeting of one of the working groups. So the Scrutiny Committee met on the 5th of August 2025, and we reviewed the Oxpens River Bridge update, which we're discussing today. So I'll report on that first, and then I'll come back to talk about the Climate and Environment Working Groups meeting on the 22nd of July. The scrutiny meeting on the 5th of August discussed only one item, that was the Oxpens River Bridge. The focus of our questions were around what the effects of widening the capital envelope would be on the wider capital programme, what risks the council might face in the event that external funding was not found, whether the project was at risk of falling into cost fallacy, and whether budget slippages were in addition to the optimism bias already built into the programme. We also explored whether the council had adequately accounted for the likelihood of further delays relating to legal proceedings. In our discussions, we were helped by having a public speaker. We also heard from Mr. Glazebrook, who's just spoken here, as well as Councillor Lois Muddiman, who both made addresses to the committee, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank them for their addresses and their contributions. I'd of course also like to express our thanks to Councillor Alex Hollingsworth and Jenny Barker for their contributions. We had quite an extended discussion around the item. Obviously, given the nature of the item, the Scrutiny Committee recognises there was a limitation in terms of the kinds of recommendations we might bring. We were very keen to make sure that we were having a discussion about the paper before us, not seeking to go back over ground already covered. That said, we came out with one recommendation, and this was a recommendation that the Cabinet undertake a high-level remodelling to assess the potential impact of the judicial review appeal progressing to a hearing. And basically, we're very keen to know what the impact of this would be around timescales and future costings, with the view to ensuring the council is better prepared and has a more informed basis for its decision making. Probably a good point for me to hand back now and then turn on to the climate and environment in a second.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. That does indeed seem like a good point to pause. So, other Alex, do you want to respond?
Yes, there is a written response which says, yes, we will do our level best to do this. What we did not want to do was to obviously delay this committee. That would be a slightly absurd outcome. So Jenny has done some work on that, which we'll be able to report verbally when we get onto the item. So high-level remodelling, it's an estimate based on inflation figures. I think that's the rational and sensible thing to do. So it's not 100% exactly a match of what the Scrutiny Committee recommended, but I hope it will meet their needs, as it were.
Thanks very much. Alex, back to you. Alex Powell, sorry.
Thank you very much. So I'll now turn to the Climate and Environment Working Group from the 22nd of July 2025. So the Climate and Environment Working Group considered the Net Zero Tracker, the Local Plan 2042 Climate Change and Resilience, and the Annual Air Quality Status Report. And all of their recommendations were then endorsed by the Scrutiny Committee at our meeting on the 5th of August. So I will take you through a couple of key points and then move to the recommendations. So in relation to the Local Plan 2042 Change and Resilience Report, the Climate Environment Working Group wanted to underscore the importance of incorporating building cooling, particularly in public buildings, as an integral part of designs. And the group suggested that if not already included, the design checklist could include featured examples of various cooling measures, including passive solutions, to help guide further development proposals. In terms of just issuing proper thanks as well. We'd like to thank Councillor Anna Railton and Tina Mould for their contributions to that meeting. It's very, very helpful. And I'll just go to our recommendations from the Climate and Environment Working Group. So the first on the Local Plan 2042 was recommendation 1 was that the Local Plan 2042 should include clear support for renewable energy schemes, particularly the potential for solar panel installations on terrace houses via community-led schemes. And secondly, on that report, there was a recommendation there is greater robustness demonstrated in the Local Plan 2042 supporting text, acknowledging the urgency of climate action when balancing the need to address the climate emergency through retrofitting heritage buildings to support decarbonisation against the need to minimise harmed heritage assets. And thirdly, on that report, there was a recommendation that the plan explicitly references the potential use of energy offsetting funds from developers for retrofit improvements to schools and community buildings, recognising the wider public benefit of public buildings rather than individual residential buildings, and criteria applied to the allocation of these funds prioritises maximum community impact. Fourthly, on this item, there was a recommendation that there is specific language included in the plan acknowledging the potential for loss and damage associated with new and existing properties in areas of high flood risk, and that local plan policies ensure applicants take account of these potential impacts in future planning and climate resilience design features to minimise possible damage. And turning as well to the air quality status report, there was one recommendation on that, and this was that the air quality action plan incorporates specific measures addressing the use of diesel generators associated with street trading, construction and similar activities. And this is to reflect the council's regulatory responsibilities in relation to street trading, as well as seeking to reduce air quality impacts. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Alex. Who's responding to this? Anna or Alex? Alex on the first ones, I guess, and then Anna on the subsequent ones.
All ones related to the local plan.
Yeah.
It would be me. The responses are extensive. I will not go into the detail. There is a lot of text here. To summarise them, generally, yes. Quite a lot of those yeses are because the local plan, which is currently out for Regulation 18 consultation, actually has in its policies, it meets some of the things which the panel were looking for. There are some instances where a local plan has to comply, for example, with the NPPF, and therefore has to take that into account. And there were a couple recommendation two about robustness of text about climate action. You need to make sure that it's not cutting across our requirements on heritage assets, which are set in the NPPF and are of course set in the 1990 pieces of legislation and other pieces of government guidance. So it's a partially yes, but up to a point. Similarly, on the energy offsetting funds, the aim would be to express broad preferences for where we would want those funds to be put, but to do it solely on schools and community buildings potentially rules out things, either things we've not thought of, or, for example, this won't be the language it's in the response, but blocks of flats, for example, might be something where it's not an individual residential building, but it's a residential building with 80, 90 units in it, and that might actually make a bigger difference than making an adjustment to one of the other buildings. So it's basically just saying yes up to a point in terms of the response. And on the specific language about loss and damage policies, those will be picked up and are set out in considerable detail. And there is policy G9 in the local draft local plan, sorry, not the real local plan, the one we're consulting on, that covers this issue in some detail. But it was a really interesting set of discussions. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Alex. And Anna, over to you on the air quality aspects.
So I haven't got this in front of me, apologies, and now I do.
Diesel generators.
Yeah, the diesel generator was one. I mean, yeah, so we accepted it in part, but with no commitment, because there is a sort of its own consultation process to go through before it's set, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alex, and thanks very much for the work of the Scrutiny Committee. As always, we appreciate the whole debate and think you've heard from Cabinet members that they appreciated that too. So thank you very much. And as always, you're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting or to leave as you wish. So thanks a lot. Right, we now move on to the main substantive item on the agenda, which is item number 9, the Oxpens River Bridge update on delivery and funding. And over to you, Alex, and also to Jenny, if you'd like to come and take a seat at the table. Jenny, we'd be delighted to hear from both of you. So thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Obviously, you've heard what was quite a lengthy response to the speaker at the front, so I won't go through that again. And I'm sure the report will be one that you're familiar with. The detail presentation Jenny will make. What I would want to draw attention to, I will repeat one element about the what I said at the beginning, which is that this bridge has been in various shapes and forms, but clearly there in policies, local plans, AAPs, SPDs adopted by this council, having been through clear public consultation processes extensively for 20 years. It's not appeared out of the blue. So I appreciate you'll all be very, very familiar with, as am I. The key phrase that I wanted to draw your attention to particularly is in the first recommendation, so recommendation 1. And just to emphasise, what we are asking for from the Cabinet is the delegation of authority to the Chief Executive and all the rest of the appropriate wording to secure additional external funds. And the word external is the key thing I want people to understand as we are going through. And the only other thing I would draw your attention to, and many of you will be familiar with this, is in paragraph 25, just being clear about the original funding and who was the responsible body here. The original funding for the bridge was provided by central government. It came through the Oxfordshire Growth Deal, and Oxfordshire County Council was the accountable body. The City Council was then, after some considerable time, became essentially the delivery mechanism, the delivery arm, or whatever one wants to call it. And just to be completely clear, is that if for whatever reason the council decides not to proceed with this, we will keep the money that we have already spent on officers, on consultants, on the planning process, on lawyers, and so on, and then return what is left to the county council, who will have to then return what is left to the government. So that I think needs to be clearly understood. It is not our money. We cannot spend it on something else. And with that, that's more than enough from me, Jenny.
Thank you very much. I don't have a lot additionally to add to this, and hopefully the report is clear. What I would say is a lot of work has now been done to get through a planning process and a detailed design process technical approvals, Section 106(3) Highways Act approvals, to be in a position to be able to deliver the bridge, subject to the receipt of the funding that is anticipated in the report. And the timing on this is quite key, because to deliver the bridge, construction needs to take place when the land is at its driest and least likely to flood. That shortens the programme, reduces risk, and therefore reduces cost. And then the time period to crane the bridge, which will be fabricated off-site and brought to site, is again quite limited. And there is an agreement with the Environment Agency that that can be done in September, which is a concession from them to be able to do that. So that really has driven the programme, which shows a start of works spring 26, delivery of the bridge and craning of it in September 26. The question from Scrutiny Committee was what would be the impact of further delay? And I think we would have to conclude that it would probably move construction to 2027 and have the similar sort of programme in that year. We have done a bit of work looking at construction cost inflation between 2026 and 27, and also an inflationary figure for non-construction elements. That's led us to a position where we think the impact would be somewhere between 0.6 and 1 million. And that is quite a wide range, and I accept that, but there are a lot of variables and uncertainties, and I wouldn't want to lead the Cabinet to believe there's a very sort of firm figure here, but that's the sort of order that we think it would be in. So then really it's just for me to reiterate that the report is very much focused on trying to seek the delegations needed to be able to deliver to the programme next year in terms of the bridge.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Thank you, Alex. Has anyone got any questions? Joe.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you for the presentation. I welcome the report. I am going to support the report, and I'll give my specifics reasons why. I like the background, Alex, that you provided. That actually reassured me. Some question marks over the addition fundings, but I drilled down in the paper, paragraph 28, 29, and 30 explains clearly, in addition to what you have said, that you are seeking first the external funding. So it also goes further in the report to provide where additional funding can come from. Additionally, why I support this paper is the clarity of who's going to maintain the bridge after the work. It clearly says in the report that the County Council will bear their liability. So for those reasons, I'll be supporting the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions or comments? Anna?
I was just going to sort of riff a little bit on the sort of alternative options, which I've talked about quite a lot. So certainly, there's often much discussion about the fact that, there are two other bridges close by. So, first off, we've got the Pipe Bridge, recently reopened, quite a long way down, to be fair, from, the Osney Mead end. And I think nobody can really claim that that is a purpose-built walking and cycling bridge. It is, it was fundamentally an industrial pipe bridge. It's really a pedestrian bridge that cyclists can go over with some difficulty getting around those ramps. So I won't discuss that one any further. Then you come to the Gasworks Bridge itself. So the way I kind of explain this locally is, the bridge itself is fine. So I actually went around with a tape measure a few nights ago and measured everything. So the Gasworks Bridge itself, 6.7 meters wide, super, it's a nice span. We all like it very much. The sort of current LTN 120 guidance when it comes to shared use paths is you want, for the sort of modelled flows we will see is 3.5 to 4 meters wide, right? For paths, for bridges, that sort of thing. So, you know, Gasworks Bridge itself very much ticks that box. That's great. If you go north of the river, that's when you start getting the problems though. So you've got the mound, which you cannot do very much with at all. There is a substantial difference in height to tackle. That path is 2 meters wide. You basically can't really make it any wider just because of geometry. This lands the bridge over the Castle Mill Stream, 2.1 meters wide. The real problems you get are where you go up the path alongside the Castle Mill Stream. So first off, this also floods. The people who live alongside it put sandbags to stop it getting into the houses. That one is 1.5 meters wide, and it really generally is super, super narrow. It's got 4 gates along it. I think, there are, as a ward member, there was a lot of discussion about how actually people don't like people cycling down on the Castle Mill Stream path. And I 100% see why, to be honest. It is not built for it. It generates huge amounts of conflict, the fact that it is so narrow. There was discussion about how, you could use the money, you could use money to make that wider. Well, one, it won't floodproof it. And 2, there were 45-ish houses alongside that. If you wanted to make that path wider, you would have to essentially CPO the gardens of 45 houses, which is a bit of a non-starter, really. If you go south of the river, the path through the woods, it's between 1.9, 2 meters wide. I think, you look at you go down there and look at actually what's there. There are literally desire lines either side of the paved path where people cycle and walk alongside it, demonstrating that even at the current level of pedestrian and walking traffic and get over it, it is not wide enough. People do not feel safe staying on the path. They literally, move outwards into the woodland to effectively make it wider. So I think, there is not, the alternative options, I think, generally just cannot be done. It cannot geometrically be done. And I think, this is one of the reasons why I support this scheme, essentially. Petered out there, sorry.
Thanks, Anna. I think just to kind of refocus the debate to remind people, we have, because the issues have been raised again with us, I think well rehearsed the reasons why this bridge was supported in the first place, and indeed dealt with the issues around public consultation on it. But actually what we're here today to do is to approve the latest round of funding for the bridge. And obviously we hope that it's not going to be caught up in legal proceedings, but it is a risk, and that's something that we have to take into account. So there have already been delays caused by legal proceedings that has increased costs. So we have to unfortunately take action accordingly. I'm not seeing any further questions or comments. Or Alex, was that a twitch, or you'd like to do a bit of a summary? Okay, fine. I'll hand back over to you, and then we can take a decision.
Yeah, I realise we've not drawn sufficient attention to one of the recommendations, so just wanted to make sure we pick that up. So recommendation 3 says what we're asking for is the delegation of authority, etc., to enter into a construction contract. So just to be clear, we don't currently have a contract with a constructor. Just wanted to make that clear, because that potential misunderstanding of the situation.
Yeah, thank you. Right, okay. Unless there's anything else, can we agree the recommendations that are in front of us? They're set out in the papers. There are 4 recommendations. They're about delegating authority to the relevant people and approving the increase in budget. Everyone happy to support those recommendations? Thank you all very much. It only therefore leaves me to remind people that the dates of future meetings are set out in the agenda, and the next scheduled meeting is on the 17th of September. Thank you all very much for attending. I close the meeting.